Hello, this audio is for Business Communication class, semester 2. And in this audio, I'll be talking about the writing process for business messages. I repeat again, the writing process for business messages. Now, let's get started. The first thing you should recognize about business writing is that it differs from other writing you may have done. In preparing high school or university compositions and term papers, you probably focus on discussing your feelings or displaying your knowledge. Your instructors and teachers wanted to see your thought processes, and they wanted assurance that you had internalized and understood the subject matter. Business writers, however, have different goals and objectives. For business messages and oral presentations, your writing should be, number one, purposeful. You need to have a purpose. You will be writing to solve problems and convey information. You will have a definite purpose to fulfill in each message. Number two, your writing should be persuasive. You want your audience to believe and accept your message. Number three, your writing should be economical. You will try to present ideas clearly but concisely. Length is not rewarded in business writing. Keep it short and simple. As I always say, the longer your sentences and paragraphs are, the more awkward, redundant, and ambiguous they will be. And number four, your writing should be audience-oriented. You will concentrate on looking at a problem from the perspective of the audience instead of seeing it from your own perspective. This is the you attitude. And the you attitude is a style of writing in which the receiver or the reader is emphasized instead of the writer of the letter. These distinctions actually make the writer's task easier. You will not be searching your imagination for creative topic ideas. You won't be stretching your ideas to make them appear longer. Writing consultants and business people complain that many university graduates entering the business world have at least an unconscious perception that quantity enhances quality. This is wrong. Quantity doesn't enhance quality. Get over the notion that longer is better. Longer is not better. Being long in your sentences and paragraphs can only tarnish your clarity. Conciseness and clarity are prized and praised in business. The ability to prepare concise, audience-centered, persuasive, and purposeful messages does not come naturally. It doesn't happen overnight. Very few people, especially beginners like you, can sit down and compose a very good letter or report without training. So training and practice are key factors in determining the quality of what you write. Practice, as I say all the time, makes perfect. The more you practice, the better your writing becomes. However, practice and training are not enough. You need to follow a systematic process. You need also to study model messages. And you need to practice the craft, because this can make nearly anyone a successful business writer or speaker. Whether you are preparing an email message, a memo, a letter, or an oral presentation, the process will be easier if you follow a systematic plan. Now, this systematic plan breaks the entire task into 5 phases or 5 stages. The writing process consists of 5 steps, as I said: planning, drafting, revising, formatting, and proofreading. The amount of time devoted to each step or to each stage depends on the type of document to be generated in terms of its length, complexity, and requirement. Writers generally adapt the various stages of the writing process to suit their writing style and needs. Now let's start with the first one, planning. This is the first step in the writing process. Planning the message involves the following components. A. Knowing the purpose of the message. Determining the purpose of your message, whether it is an email, a letter, a memo, or whatever business communication document. B. Knowing the audience, analyzing the audience, identifying what kind of audience you are writing to. C. Determining the contents of the message. D. Gathering and collecting information. And finally, E. Organizing the message. Begin the writing process by determining the purpose of the message. That is to say, whether the message is meant to give information, to persuade, request, instruct, etc. Try and determine the purpose as specifically as possible. Knowing the purpose of the message helps the writer in determining what his writing style would be like. The next step of planning the writing is analyzing the audience in terms of who would be reading the message, what your relationship with the audience is, and how the audience is expected to react to the message. The content, organization, and tone of the message depend upon these factors. The tone of the message in terms of the degree of formality of the message is affected by the relative status of the reader and the writer. The content is influenced by knowledge of the audience, their interest, and the demographic characteristics of the audience. Anticipation of the audience reaction also should be taken into account while planning the writing. If the reader reaction is likely to be positive, you can use a direct approach by beginning with important details and coming straight to the actual point in the message. A likely neutral reaction of the audience can be converted into a positive reaction by using the first few lines to catch the reader's attention and convince the reader of the importance of what you as a writer are trying to convey. In case you anticipate a negative reaction, build a rapport with the reader in the introduction of the message. Start with a neutral statement and then supply lots of evidence and arguments in support of your statements, and through logic, increase the acceptability of the message. The next step is determining the content, meaning what goes into the message. Based on the purpose and the analysis of the audience, determine what the content of the message should be. Avoid including irrelevant information that wastes the time of the reader. At the same time, do not leave out information which may be vital to the communication. Two common techniques to determine what goes into the content of the message are brainstorming and mind mapping. Brainstorming is a useful strategy in which we can jot down information and ideas, write down possible leads, and anything else you think might be helpful in constructing your message. The aim, of course, is for quantity, not quality at this stage. Don't evaluate your output unless you have run out of ideas. Then begin to refine, delete, combine, and revise your ideas to form the basis for your message. Mind mapping Another possible strategy, it is also called clustering, is a process that avoids the step-by-step limitation of lists. Instead, you write the purpose of your message in the middle of the page and circle it. Then as you think of possible points to add, write them down and link them by a line either to the main purpose or to another point. As you think of other details, add them where you think they might fit in. The visual outline offers flexibility and encourages free thinking. Once you plan the content, gather all the information that you will need to facilitate your writing. The various sources include reports, past correspondence, journals, newspapers, sales reports, etc. The final step in the planning process is the organization of the message. That is to say, deciding what goes where in the message. Use the direct approach, which involves presenting the major idea first, followed by supporting details for routine and good news messages. For persuasive and bad news messages, and messages in which you anticipate a negative reaction, use the indirect approach. Here, you first prepare the reader to receive the message and then convey the message. The supporting ideas are presented first, followed by the main idea. Now, the second stage in the writing process is drafting. Once we have the information and plan to organize the information, start writing. Compose the first version of the message. In the first draft, do not pay much attention to the style or format of the message. Concentrate more on the content part of the message. Just put your ideas on paper. Remember that it is not possible to have a perfect message in the first draft itself. Leave it for the next stage in the writing process. And the next stage, which is the third stage, is revising. Once the draft is ready, revise the writing. You may need 2 or more revisions to get the writing in the shape you intend it to be. Revise the writing for content, style, and correctness. You can revise the writing based on the principles of effective writing that we discussed in class: clarity, completeness, courtesy, correctness, conciseness, appropriate tone and language, etc. Also, ensure that you have included all the relevant information. The writing should have an impressive style and should be effective. At the same time, it should be accuracy, that is to say, free from grammatical and content errors. The fourth stage in the writing process is formatting. Presentation of the written message in an impressive layout with an appealing appearance is essential. Some documents need to follow a standard format. Like, for example, a business letter needs to follow the regularities of writing a business letter in terms of its format. And the full blocked style format requires the use of specific parts in specific possessions in the letter. The return address should come first, then the date, then the inside address, then the salutation, the body, the complimentary clause, the signature block, and finally the enclosures. Formatting helps the reader to find certain information in a particular possession. It gives a neat and visually appealing look to the document. That's why we need to focus a lot on the correct format of the document we are writing. The last stage in the writing process is proofreading. This is the final step in the writing process. This is the last opportunity the writer has to make any changes to the message before it passes on to the reader. Proofreading ensures the accuracy of the communication. Proofread the message for content, typographical, and format errors. Content errors may arise because relevant information may get left out or inconsistent information may be presented. That is to say, information which is contradictory or information which might be actually incorrect. Most of the content errors are taken care of in the revising stage. Typographical errors include spelling and punctuation mistakes, missing out a word, a line, or a complete paragraph while typing, duplication of words, or typing figures or words incorrectly from the manuscript. Using the spell check function available in most word processing software helps identify many of these errors. Like, for example, if you are using Microsoft Word, you can use the spell check function, which is integral to this software, and it will automatically pinpoint your errors. You can also use the grammar check function, which is available and integral to Microsoft Word, and it will signal your grammar mistakes as well. Formatting errors relate to inappropriate font size, font, heading, subheading, possession, numbering of section, subsections, etc. Now, as a summary of what I said in this audio, written communication is an inherent part of business communication. We generally write to express our thoughts and feelings and to share ideas, to instruct, to inform, or perhaps influence and persuade people. In this audio, I basically focused on the 5 stages of the writing process. That is to say, planning, drafting, revising, formatting, and proofreading. Before I close the audio, I'd like you to have a checklist to use after writing a business communication document. This checklist is a set of questions that you need to ask to make sure of the quality of your writing. You can ask these questions at the end. Did I choose understandable words? Is my choice of words appropriate? Are my words clear enough for the reader to understand? Did I use specific, precise words? Did I choose strong words? Did I emphasize positive words? Did I avoid overused words? Did I avoid obsolete words? And what I mean here by obsolete words, archaic words, words that are no longer used today. Did I compose clear sentences? Are my sentences clear? Did I use short sentences? Or are my sentences short? Did I prefer active voice in sentences? Did I give ideas appropriate emphasis in my sentences? Did I use short paragraphs? Did I develop paragraph unity and coherence by using transitions, by moving from idea to idea smoothly and logically? Did I organize paragraphs logically? Did I give ideas appropriate emphasis in paragraphs? Did I avoid biased language? Was my language considerate? Did I respect cultural differences, ethnic differences, racial differences, and religious differences? Now, these questions, if you ask them at the end of your writing process, you can ensure that your document is well written. Now, that is for today's audio. I hope that it was clear. I hope now that you understand the writing process and its stages, and I hope that you can implement these stages to write an effective business communication document. The checklist that I presented at the end can be used to review and ensure the utmost quality of your document. Thank you very much for listening, and see you in another audio. going to talk about writing direct claims and complaints. I repeat, writing direct claims and complaints. Now, before I start, let's have an idea about the outline. First, I'm going to define what I mean by direct claims and complaints. Then, I will talk about the writing plan for a direct claim. And when I say the writing plan, I mean the opening, the body, and the closing. How do we write the opening? What should we do in the opening? How do we proceed with the body? And finally, how do we end a direct claim? Then, I'll read you two examples of direct claims. The first one is poorly written and needs to be improved. And the second one is well written. So we are going to compare between the two and see the things that we should avoid while writing a direct claim and the things that we should do. This is like the first part of my outline. The second part will be on writing adjustment letters. I will first define what I mean by adjustment letters. And by the way, adjustment letters are the letters written by companies in response to the claims of their clients and customers, usually to correct the wrong done to them. I will also talk about the writing plan for an adjustment letter, the subject line, the opening, the body, and the closing. And finally, I'll read you an example of a well-written adjustment claim so that we can pinpoint the things that make a good adjustment letter. Now let's get started. Problems in businesses and companies can happen on a daily basis. In fact, they are part and parcel of the daily operations they do. There are a lot of problems that can happen in businesses. Probably we hear of some common ones, like for example, shipments are late. You buy an item, they promise you a certain date to deliver the item, but then it arrives very late, maybe a week later than the date promised, or a month, or whatever kind of late date. This is called late delivery. Warranted goods fail. You buy an item with a warranty, but it fails before the warranty, or before the deadline in the warranty. Service is disappointing, and this is due to sometimes cruel stuff or unfriendly stuff. It happens to every one of us sometimes. You don't feel comfortable dealing with a company simply because of a member or a staff member who is not friendly and who is not effective in communicating with the customers. Sometimes you may buy an item and then when you receive it, you find that it is faulty. You find that, for example, the item is broken or scratched or doesn't work properly. Like if you buy a phone and then when you receive it, you find that the screen is scratched. This is called a faulty item, and this is something that happens a lot. Now, when you as a customer must write to identify or correct a wrong, the message is called a claim. Some people also call it a complaint or a complaint letter. Claims that require persuasion are called indirect claims, and that's not our concern in today's audio. In today's audio, the focus is basically on direct claims and complaints. Consumers usually resort to telephone calls or to emails. To complain about the problems that we've mentioned, most people today, they just write an email or pick a phone and give a phone call to the company or to the customer service manager. Now, what do you think is the most effective way to complain? Is it by telephone calls and emails or by sending formal letters? Okay, what do you think? I personally think that letters are more effective for many reasons or for several reasons. Letters are more convincing, okay? And they establish a record of what happened. They also command more attention than telephone calls and emails. They also convey a high degree of seriousness. When the recipient receives your letter, he or she will understand that the matter is serious, and so they will give it their utmost attention. Of course, there are disadvantages when it comes to letters, especially the fact that they are slow to deliver. Okay, a letter usually takes some time to arrive compared to an email or a phone call, but we can manage this problem by just scanning the letter and faxing it, or simply scanning the letter and attaching it to the email we are sending. Now, in this way, we can preserve the effects of a letter and achieve the instantaneous delivery. Okay, and here we would hit two birds with one stone. As far as the writing plan is concerned, we have basically three parts that we are going to talk about here. Of course, I'm not going to mention the other parts which are very, very necessary and you can do without them, like the return address at the top of the letter, the date line, the inside address, and the salutation. Now, those parts are compulsory. I'm going to focus basically on the opening, the body, and the closing. What should we do in each of these parts? In the opening, you should describe clearly the desired action. In the body, we explain the claim, tell why it is justified, and provide details describing the desired action. And in the closing, you need to end pleasantly with a goodwill statement and include an end date and action requests if appropriate. Now, I'm going to talk in details about these three parts. Now, let's start with the opening. Usually, when consumers have a legitimate claim or complaint, they can expect a positive response from a company. If you support your claim with evidence, then the company will have no other choice but to respond positively to your claim. But of course, provided that your claim should be supported, rational, reasonable, and well written. And when I say well written, the language should be polite and courteous. Your tone shouldn't vent anger, and many other considerations that we are going to see when we read the examples later on in this audio. Smart businesses want to hear from their customers. They know that retaining a customer is far less costly than recruiting a new one. Now, how to open your claim? Open a claim with a clear statement of the problem or with the action you want the receiver to take. You might expect a replacement. For example, you ordered an item, but when you received it, you felt that it is not appropriate or that it is not proper, it doesn't work properly. So probably you may ask for a replacement. So if this is your action, if this is the action you request, please make it very clear in the opening. You may ask for a refund. Okay? You want your money back. You change your mind and you want to have your money back. So you can ask for a refund, but please say it from the beginning. That's why we call it direct claim, because we state the action requested from the beginning, in the opening. You may also ask to change the order, a new order, okay? Or a correction of a bill and error. There is an error in the bill. You may ask for free repairs, or probably you may ask for the cancellation of the order altogether. So whatever you are asking or whatever action you are requesting, it should be stated at the very beginning in your opening, okay? Now, what about the body? In the body, we justify the claim. We explain and justify the claim. Explain the problem and justify your request, of course. Provide all relevant details so that the problem can be corrected without further correspondence. If you don't provide enough details, probably you will create misunderstanding and then expect the company or its representative to call you or send you a letter asking for more clarifications. And if they do, then things will take long and the positive response you desire would be delayed. So you'd better explain in details and make things clear in your first claim message. Avoid becoming angry or trying to fix blame. Of course, when you write a complaint, you are dissatisfied, okay? You are not happy with what happened, especially if it is the responsibility of the company you are dealing with. But even if you are unhappy, you shouldn't express your unhappiness or dissatisfaction in a way that is impolite or in a way that shows an angry tone, okay? Please try to maintain that courteous tone even in cases when you are unhappy or dissatisfied. Bear in mind that the person reading your message is seldom the one responsible for the problem. So instead, state the facts logically, objectively, and unemotionally. Now these three adverbs are very important. Logically, not irrationally. Objectively, not subjectively. Unemotionally, not emotionally. One of the basic characteristics of business writing is trying to avoid emotional language. Of course, that's acceptable if you are writing a short story or probably a poem or any other piece of creative writing. In business writing, we should do away with emotional language, okay? State the hard facts supported with evidence. When sending a letter by postal mail, enclose copies of all pertinent documents such as invoices, sales slips, catalog descriptions, and repair records. Of course, those receipts and other documents can also be scanned and attached to an email if you are sending an email. When using paper mail, do not send your originals, which could be lost, okay? Try, maybe you can photocopy them and legalize them and then send the legalized copies instead of sending the originals. The risk of losing them is always there, so be wary about that. When service is involved, cite the names of individuals you spoke to and the dates of calls. If you are complaining about a service, for example, you were maltreated by an agent or a staff member, or you were verbally abused by someone in the company, then you need to state the names of those who are accountable for that, okay? Assume that a company honestly wants to satisfy its customers, because most do. Alright, now that's for the body. Now what about the concluding part? In the concluding part, or in the conclusion, we ask for a specific action. We request a certain action to be taken, okay? End your message with a courteous statement that promotes goodwill and summarizes your action request. If appropriate, include an end date. Let me give you an example. I hope you understand that mistakes in ordering online sometimes occur. Because I have enjoyed your prompt service in the past, I hope that you will be able to issue a refund or store credit by May the 2nd. Now here, as you may have noticed, the language is very courteous and there is a very clear call for action, which is issuing a refund or store credit by May the 2nd, by a certain very specific deadline. Finally, in making claims, act promptly. For example, you received a faulty item or got an erroneous bill to pay. Don't wait until, like for example, 7 days after that to react and write a claim. No, you need to write immediately and promptly, because delaying claims makes them appear less important. Delayed claims are also more difficult to verify. A written claim starts a record of the problem should later action be necessary. Save a copy of your message, whether paper or electronic. Of course, you need to save a copy of your message to serve as a record for later correspondence or for later needs. Okay, so now we go to the part where I'm going to read you two examples of direct claims. The first one is poorly written and needs to be improved, and the second one is well written. Of course, both of them are emails written by someone who received an erroneous bill from a company. This is a person who was charged an extra sum of money for a service that he didn't buy. So now he's writing these two emails to complain about this. However, the difference between the two emails is very noticeable. The first one is badly written, but the second one is very well written. The company's name is Good Vibes. He's writing to Good Vibes. Now look how he's going to start his first email. In the subject line, he wrote Bad Vibes. It seems that the person here started the attack from the very beginning, from the subject line, Bad Vibes. Instead of Good Vibes, which is the name of the company, he said, or he wrote, Bad Vibes. Dear Good Vibes, you call yourselves Good Vibes, but all I'm getting from your service is bad vibes. I'm furious that you have your salespeople slip in unwanted service warranties to boost your sales. When I bought my Pantronic DVR from Good Vibes in August, I specifically told the salesperson that I did not want a 3-year service warranty. But there it is on my Visa statement this month. You people have obviously billed me for a service I did not authorize. I refuse to pay this charge. How can you hope to stay in business with such fraudulent practices? I was expecting to return this month and look at HD TVs, but you can be sure I'll find an honest dealer this time. Angrily. Alright, so as you see, the email here is not well written. It doesn't meet the standards of business communication. And one of these standards is using courteous language, okay? So the person or the writer uses meaningless subject line, bad vibes. And in the opening of his email, he sounds angry and he jumps to conclusions and value judgments. In the body, he forgets that mistakes happen. Mistakes happen in business, of course, and sometimes they are unintentional. I mean, they don't intend to cause the problem. So we need to deal with such problems that happen and occur with rational and polite way to fix things and to put things on the good track again. In the third paragraph, he fails to suggest a solution. He doesn't ask for any corrective measure. He doesn't ask for any action to be taken. And of course, in the complementary clause, he finishes with angrily, not sincerely yours, or yours sincerely, or yours truly. So it is angrily. And we said that we shouldn't use such kind of writing. When we write, we are not writing to vent anger, but to fix things. Now let's read the second email, which is well written, and see what makes it different from the first one. Subject line, requesting refund for erroneous charge. Dear Miss Bourne, please credit my Visa account ending in number 9421 to correct an erroneous charge of $299. On August the 1st, I purchased a Pantronic DVR from Good Vibes. Although the salesperson discussed a 3-year extended warranty with me, I decided against purchasing that service for $299. However, when my credit card statement arrived this month, I noticed an extra $299 charge from Good Vibes. I suspect that this charge represents the warranty I declined. Enclosed is a scanned copy of my sales invoice along with my Visa statement showing the charge. Please authorize a credit immediately and email me a confirmation of the transaction. I'm enjoying all the features of my Pantronic DVR and would like to be shopping at Good Vibes for an HD TV shortly. Sincerely, Duncan Rabi. So as you see, the email is very much different than the first one. This email is completely different than the one we read. First, the writer provides an informative subject line which summarizes the purpose of the email. In the opening, he states simply and clearly what to do, okay? He requests a very specific action. Then he explains objectively what went wrong. He doesn't blame or accuse. When you read his email, you don't find any blame or accusation. He also uses friendly tone. That kind of friendliness is maintained from the beginning till the end of his email. And also he documents facts. When I say he documents facts, I mean that he supports his claim with specific and concrete evidence, especially when he says, "Enclosed is a scanned copy of my sales invoice along with my visa statement showing the charge." And at the end, in the concluding paragraph, he summarizes the request and courteously suggests continued business once the problem is resolved. So as you see, the email is very well written and it highly meets the standards of business communication. Now we come to the last part of my audio, which is adjustment messages. Now, when a company receives a claim and decides to respond favorably, the message is called an adjustment. Most businesses make adjustments promptly and immediately without any delay. They replace merchandise, they refund money to the customers, they extend discounts and send coupons, and sometimes repair goods. In fact, social media have shortened the response time drastically to mere hours, not days. Businesses grant adjustments to legitimate claims for two reasons. First, contract and tort law protects consumers for recovery of damages. If, for example, you find an insect in a package of frozen peas, the food processor of that package is bound by contractual law to replace it. If you suffer injury, the processor may be liable for damages. Second, most organizations genuinely want to satisfy their customers and retain their business. In responding to customer claims, you must first decide whether to grant the claim or not. Unless the claim is obviously fraudulent or excessive, you will probably grant it. When you say yes, your adjustment message will be good news to the reader, and that's why you need to state it immediately in the beginning of your adjustment letter. And here you use what we call the direct approach. We are going to see with writing good news, bad news messages the difference between direct strategy and indirect strategy. When we have good news, the direct strategy is recommended. You need to state the good news immediately. And when you have bad news, you'd better keep it until a later time in your letter. Okay, you don't state it immediately. When your response is no, the indirect pattern might be more appropriate. You have three goals in adjustment messages. When you write an adjustment message to a customer, basically there are three goals that we want to achieve. The first one is to rectify the wrong, if it exists, of course. The second one is to regain the confidence of the customer. Without that confidence, without regaining the confidence of the customer, the company may lose its customers with time. And the third one is promoting further business. Of course, promoting further business with customers. A positive adjustment message follows the direct strategy. So the writing plan for this direct strategy is like this. We start with the subject line, which is, of course, it is optional, but if you prefer to use it, identify the previous correspondence and refer to the main topic, as we are going to see with the example that I'm going to read later on in this audio. Then the opening, and in the opening, you grant the request or announce the adjustment immediately. Of course, an adjustment is good news. It is a positive response to the customer, so that should be announced immediately. In the body, you provide details about how you are complying with the request. Try to regain the customer's confidence. Apologize if appropriate, but don't admit negligence, because if you admit negligence, this can subject you to a lawsuit, or maybe this can give a pretext to the customer to issue a lawsuit against you. So apology is good and it is acceptable, and it does no harm, but admitting negligence can sometimes cost you a lot. In the closing, end positively with a forward-looking thought. Express confidence about future business relations. Include a sales promotion if appropriate. But remember, please, to avoid referring to unpleasantness. Keep that sense of politeness and courtesy up until the end of your message. Now let's read an example of a well-written adjustment letter. Of course, we have the letterhead. We have May the 20th, 2016 as the date. And of course, we have the inside address. Then the salutation, Dear Mr. Lopez. The subject line, your May the 15th letter about your purchase order. So as you see, the subject line is brief and it does really summarize the topic, and it refers to the previous correspondence. Your May the 15th letter about your purchase order. Your second shipment of the Blue Players video game consoles and other electronics that you ordered April the 16th is on its way and should arrive on May the 27th. The first shipment of this order was delivered May the 1st to 45 Estate Street, Tretton, 08611. When no one at that address would accept the shipment, it was returned to us. Now that I have your letter, I see that the order should have been sent to 1517 Hamilton Avenue, Trenton, NJ 08603. When an order is undeliverable, we usually try to verify the shipping address by telephoning the customer. Somehow, the return of this shipment was not caught by our normally painstaking shipping clerks. You can be sure that I will investigate shipping and return procedures with our clerks immediately to see if we can improve existing methods. Your respect is important to us, Mr. Lopez. Although our rock-bottom discount prices have enabled us to build a volume business, we don't want to be so large that we lose touch with valued customers like you. Over the years, our customers' respect has made us successful, and we hope that the prompt delivery of this shipment will retain yours. Sincerely, Kimberly Lou, Distribution Manager. Now, as you see, this is a very well-written adjustment simply because it meets the standards of business communication. Okay? Now, first, the writer of this letter, who is the distribution manager of the company, addresses the recipient by name, Dear Mr. Lopez. And when we address people by name, it is much better than addressing them using Dear Sir or Madam. We get a good impression when we are addressed by name. Then he announces good news immediately. Your second shipment of the Blu-ray players, video game consoles, and other electronics that you ordered April the 16th is on its way and should arrive on May the 27th. In the body, he tries to regain the confidence of customer by explaining what happened and by suggesting plans for improvement. And finally, in the conclusion, he closes confidently with genuine appeal for the customer's respect, especially when he says, your respect is important to us, Mr. Lopez. So as you see, this is a very formal adjustment letter in which all the standards of business communication and business writing are respected. I encourage everyone to do much practice because, as I say all the time, practice makes perfect, and without practice, you may not be able to internalize the do's and the don'ts of business writing. That's it for today's audio. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.